Welcome to your in-depth monthly horoscope for April 2024 for the Ascendant, the Sun or the Moon. I'm going to share the standout details of the month for you first, but please stay with me. I will explore in much greater depth all the ins and outs particularly relevant to your sign. Now, as this month begins, your ruler Mercury is preparing to slam on the celestial brakes, and that happens later on the 1st, and it's going to be travelling backwards through the first 23 days. So it's important through to the 24th when it goes direct just to be aware of the part of your situation it is going to impact. And it's very much to do with your shared resources, where you're most invested emotionally, where you're most devoted, but also where something could be transforming in your life. And we do have a number of contacts in that area, all governed by the sign of Aries, not least Chiron, the North Node, Venus moving into this area as well, and a stunning total solar eclipse. But later in the month, there's the potential for you to break out, be more adventurous, and that's what I can't wait to share with you. But if you are new to my channel, thank you so much for joining us. This is very much a community. If you have any thoughts, please share them. I interact with each comment. If you're a returning visitor, thank you so much for your company. I much appreciate all your likes, comments, shares and subscriptions. If you've yet to subscribe, I'm racing towards 120,000 subscribers. Please click or tap on the bell notification symbol. That means every time I drop a video, you will get an alert. And if you would like to ascend above this zodiac broadcast and embrace the power of personal astrology, if you give me 3 pieces of your birth data of time and date and place, or if you don't know your time, date and place, I can produce for you your life roadmap report. This will give you searing insights into the patterns that have played out in your life so far, but also a much more intimate understanding of how to work with these energies more effectively going forwards. And in my special package of 30% off, you can also get your 12-month transit report. That's the moving planets in the sky interacting with that unique blueprint that only you were given when you were born. Please see the link below for more. So on the screen now, Virgo, is your event chart right at the start of the month. The critical thing to point out for you is that Mars, the planet of drive and passion, instant gratification, is parked up right on your 7th house cusp. So you can see there at 7 degrees and 0 minutes in the sign of Pisces, your opposite sign. That suggests you're going to set some robust boundaries this month. That's not a bad thing at all. But I want you to be mindful of the midpoint in Aquarius. This is the balance of the drive of the sun and the feeling of the moon. So it is the overall energy of this chart, and it's at 19 degrees in Aquarius in the 6th house. You also have Pluto there ever since, of course, the 21st of January. So there is a sense that things could be changing around an area that you've been quite dedicated around for quite some time. It could be a practical structure in your own life. It may be to do with your work. But the thing is that midpoint is squaring up with Uranus, which is in the part of your situation to do with freedom. The overview of this is that this is a month that you could become increasingly rebellious about any kind of obligation which pens you in and stops you being a free spirit. It's all going to come up to the boil on the 21st when Uranus and Jupiter come into an exact conjunction, but by then Mars has moved forwards to support them in your 7th house. So you're going to be laying down some quite strident markers this month. If people are taking you for granted, I think there's a sense you're going to want to push back, even if it means some elements of your situation which have been quite settled are going to transform with that Aries energy. Now, Mercury goes retrograde, as I mentioned, later on that first day for 23 days. It begins the retrograde at 27 degrees, by the 24th, it's inverted back to 16 degrees. But it is going to be in its post-retrograde shadow through to the middle of May. So when it comes to transformations in your life, particularly around your material world, so that could be investments, property, pensions, inheritances, all those kind of areas, you may have to revisit those, do some deep dives, and really make sure that you're monitoring things with your usual precision, because obviously Mercury retrograde can create some snags and catches, but it can also create some opportunities this month, as I will share with you shortly. But there is, a magical link between Venus and Neptune at the start of this month, but also the part of fortune, and that's in your 7th house. What's not to like? Well, indeed, by the 3rd of April, Venus and Neptune are exact. If there is somebody that you're drawn towards and there really is a very beautiful connection, it could be something to really behold. But you must be conscious that the moon at the start of this month is in house 4, squaring up with Neptune and Venus. So if there is somebody that you're finding utterly fascinating, don't drop your guard too quickly, because they need to prove to you that they're worthy of your affection and your loyalty. Now, this doesn't mean just in a romantic context. It could be a friendship, a business proposal, or a partnership, or anything to do with people you're working with. You need to know where you stand. So that's very important, and that's why Mars stood on that 7th house cusp really says and gives you the push not to give way too easily. But let's just look at that house 8 again. So you can see the sun there, and pretty close is the North Node. The true North Node has been in your 8th house since the middle of July 2023. You may have found yourself being more attracted to some psychological developments in your situation, understanding what makes you tick more at a deeper level, or the actions of others. Now, they're going to come together on the 5th of this month exactly. But the key with the North Node is it's quite fated. Something could unfold or develop at a very psychological level or around shared resources in a way that's very positive for you on the 5th. But equally, Venus, the planet of relating, moves out of your sector of the 7th house and into the 8th. You could be quite fortunate due to somebody else's good fortune. So whether it's a partner, whether it's a family member being very generous, whether you work in a business where they're actually very inclusive and decide that you as an employee are deserving of some extra acknowledgement or even a financial reward. I know that that has not really been the narrative recently because of the financial crunch, but you could have some good financial news around the 5th. Not least that Venus forges a link to Pluto for the first time in over 200 years, with Pluto in Aquarius. So Venus in the 8th house, to be honest, can also be very sultry. If there is somebody that has been tantalizingly of interest to you, and they do pass those initial tests, that you feel that they are clear in their intention and you know where you stand, the next weeks ahead could see you really sparking at a very sensual level with one another. So really exciting stuff. But by the total solar eclipse of the 8th in the north, the 9th in the southern hemisphere, that's very close. Almost only 1 minute away from Chiron. Chiron has, I feel, a little bit of an unfair reputation. Chiron is often where we will shine, but it's often where we feel we get the least back from others. Now, it depends on where your natal Chiron is and in what house it's in, but in terms of the collective, in this sense, is in house 8. So if you're someone who's very astute with managing your resources and you're very invested in your job or your partnership or your friendships, but you feel other people are not so good, that could be something that you're going to want to grapple with over the following 6 months, which is the length of impact of this particular eclipse. But from the 10th to the 13th, your ruler Mercury in its retrograde meets the advancing sun on the 11th in a cazimi. This is an inferior conjunction because of the retrograde. Mercury is this side of the sun, from the sun, Mercury, the position of Earth. So if you are a little bit unsure and you're needing to get more informed, see the Mercury retrograde as an opportunity to find out a lot more information. It could be about pensions, it may be about savings, it's possibly about anything to do with business or property matters, but your natural penchant for diving deep and really grappling in a very precise way with the minutiae is really going to be to your advantage. Now, of course, we know that Mercury retrogrades can create snags. So somebody else may be slow in providing information to you, or if you're waiting for a refund or a payout, that may not come through quite as quickly as you would like. But be assured, from the 14th through to the 19th, Mercury and Venus come together in a conjunction, which is exact on the 19th, and that could provide the outcome in a more positive way. Also, there's a lovely link between Mercury and Chiron on the 13th. If there is something you need to discuss, for example, if you wanted to have some counselling, or you wanted to advise somebody that you're very fond of, that is a prime moment to embrace that process. Also, Venus applies to the node on the 17th, Chiron on the 21st, again in very positive ways if you're wanting to dive deep. The 8th house energy is not superficial. It can be where things will end, and it can be where things will be reborn. So if something does fade out for you during this series of days or during this solar eclipse in the next 6 months, although it may prove to be somewhat painful, perhaps even, if I'm really honest, traumatic, it is going to clear the way for you to be much more liberated, because remember, you've had Venus moving through your 8th house, the planet of relating and money, from the 5th, but actually in terms of Uranus and Jupiter in your 9th house, they've really been pushing you in recent times to be more experimental. And there's part of your condition that may find that rather difficult, because giving a service, being supportive, having some firm structures in your life give you a sense of stability. But sometimes I feel that that is freezing and almost paralyzing your passion. And the 8th house is about passion. So in some ways, if you do go through some delicate situations this month, or things are not necessarily panning out exactly as you want, just be aware that the big picture is that at some level you are deciding to change things. And I think that that Uranus square the midpoint at the start of the month, and Mars being on your 7th house, means that you're developing a more rebellious streak, even if it means in some ways rocking what's provided some stability for some time. All of this will start to make a lot more sense when the Sun moves into your sister Earth sign of Taurus, Jupiter and Uranus on the 19th. Now for you, that 9th house energy gives you the desire to free yourself even more if things have been cloying, or someone's been very possessive or making demands, or there's been heavy jealousy around any kind of involvement. The Sun moving to join up with those two, and those two come into that conjunction on the 21st, Jupiter and Uranus, but also in that sextile to the passionate Mars. You're really going to feel much more motivated by this part of the month. But there is a potential snag, and it lays in the guise of Pluto, because Pluto's in house 6, as I said to you at the start of the presentation, and that's very much to do with the pattern in your life. Pluto's about change. Pluto interfaces with this particular Sun ingress in a tense right angle. It's important, if you are going to try to break something down and take a more escapist approach, that you're just aware that it could be bumpy. And that may become more obvious to you on the 23rd, when we have the full moon in the passionate sign of Scorpio. For you, that's about your everyday thinking and communication. The 9th house position of the Sun is your higher ideal, the truth of situations, but that's T-squaring, that event, that lunation is T-squaring Pluto too. So your ideas may create some friction. So this need to articulate yourself, find your voice, be more rebellious, may create some inner tension because there's a change, or someone may feel threatened because you're wanting to shake things up somewhat. The good news is that with Mercury going direct on the 24th, that will help to quell some of the tension. But on the 29th, it's Venus's turn to square up with Pluto. But for you, it's a great news story because Venus joins up with the Sun, Jupiter and Uranus in your 9th house. And also Mars applies to Neptune at the end of this month. It can bring a little bit more of an idealistic vibe to your relationship situation. But if you have been going through quite a bumpy ride in terms of an involvement where there is a lot of politics, you do feel penned in and you feel you have no choice but to break out and escape, whether it's a job that you're not feeling appreciated in, whether it's a friendship where someone is a bit clingy and controlling, or it is that personal relationship, by the end of this month, your desire to be much more go-getting and independent, freedom-loving, and most of all, if you can, do some travel, break out, do something that's much more spontaneous as this month draws to a close. It will be like a breath of fresh air. So as this month begins, Virgo, there's a lot of emphasis on your relating sector, but some big transformations are possible at the heart of the month. By the end of the month, you'll know whether you need to stay and continue to work at a close involvement or some situation where you're really deeply invested, or you need to accept that there does need to be some change, and going through the change may upset some of the set routines and more modulated approaches that you've had for some time. You can resist it at this first blush, it's true, but Pluto's going to be pushing you more and more over the years ahead to shake things up so that the giving you do to support others, the appreciation you have of providing services, is in a way which doesn't kill your personal expression and your passion. It's been a real pleasure being with you. Please do like, comment, share or subscribe.